Man crates, awesome gifts for men in real wooden crates, wrapped in a cocoon of duct tape, or housed in ammo cans that are virtually indestructible. Some gifts he'll get to assemble himself. Some gifts you'll beg him to share. And some gifts are sealed inside layers of rock-solid concrete. Gifts guys love, from grilling gear to old-school video games and more.
Right, players and coaches rock some orange locks to bring awareness to brain cancer and its research. You can see Chase Winovich, Mo Hurst, and defensive coordinator Don Brown all partook for the cause. Some awesome stuff there. Michigan and South Carolina traded off 3 and outs until this. Michigan goes the punt, and it's muffed by South Carolina special teams. Michigan recovers deep in Gamecock territory. Michigan gets a field goal off the turnover. This is going to be a 35-yarder, and it is good from Quentin Nordine. He had quite the game for the Wolverines. 1st and 10 now. Gamecocks trying to march down the field with a 2:28 left in the first. Bentley takes the snap, and the handoff is muffed, and it's recovered by Winovich. Wolverine ball. Michigan gets another field goal off the turnover. It's Quentin Nordine again, 24-yarder. Wolverines up 6. Gamecocks ball now. Bentley back to pass, and Kalik Hudson bats down the ball on a crucial 3rd down. Could have saved a touchdown. What a play from the Viper. Gamecocks field goal, the 43-yarder is good, and now it is only a 3-point game. It's going to be South Carolina ball. Refs reverse a 1st down call, so it's 3-1. Bentley hands it off to Tyson Williams, and who else but Mo Hurst is going to come up with a big tackle for a loss. Michigan's going to have another 3 and out, but the Michigan D is going to keep on rolling, coming up with a big stop here on 3rd and down. That's Rashawn Gary on the play. And then Peters to Sean McCune for a 4th down conversion with 40 seconds left on the clock for the first half. Quentin Nordine would then go on to nail a 45-yard field goal to wrap up the half. It is 9-3. Yeah, all right, so that was the first half. We're going to take it to a weigh-in now. We want to know from the Michigan fans, were you disappointed with Michigan's performance on offense in the first half? Obviously, a very low-scoring game, James. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think they came out sluggish. I noted one noted Michigan reporter I saw on Twitter before the game said the Michigan team looked kind of fat, Lena. They kind of looked overweight.
One way to put it.
A little sluggish, gained some bad weight during the this 4-week layoff, and they came out completely uninspired. This was not the offense we saw in the Ohio State game, which, although it was a loss, came out with John O'Corn at quarterback, making people guess, confusing the defense, kind of getting the ball in the hands of guys we didn't normally see get the ball. And this one, it was just a bunch of runs for 2 or 3, 4 yards, and then Brandon Peters dropping back in the pass, either throwing the ball deep over somebody's head or making a 6-yard pass, and half of them were caught, half of them weren't. So pretty disappointing in the first half, Lena. They got started here in the second half, we'll show, but the biggest disappointment of this entire game we're going to get to here in a few moments. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting first half for the Wolverines. Better on defense than it was on offense, but only 147 combined yards for both offenses in the first half. Yeah, I mean, poor offense, very boring game. If you're a general college football fan, very, very boring game in the first half. And it really, we got into some fireworks. We'll show you the highlights of the second half here in just a moment. But Brandon Peters, Lena, is a guy who is playing for his job. And we're going to pull up his stats in here in just a few moments. But Brandon Peters is playing for his job, and he did not come to play. I mean, when I look at Brandon Peters, he has Shea Patterson coming in, kind of taking his job, most likely, if he's going to get eligibility in 2018. And frankly, Brandon Peters showed me nothing in this game when he threw the ball for over 40 times, showed me absolutely nothing in this game that says this is the guy that can be Michigan's quarterback long term, that can be the guy who can beat Ohio State, can go on the road next year in Columbus, can go on the road next year in East Lansing, can go on the road, sorry to say that 3 times, to South Bend. They've got 3 major rivalry, the 3 biggest rivalries of the season are on the road next season. 3 biggest rivals are on the road in 2018, starting off September 1st with Notre Dame. And frankly, Lena, they're going to lose all 3 of those games if the quarterback play is what we saw today from Brandon Peters against a rather pedestrian, South Carolina team, South Carolina defense. It was brutal, and frankly, I just don't know what to say. We'll get to the second half highlights here in a moment, folks. But what's your take on Brandon Peters from this one, Lena?
Honestly, I really thought Peters, after having missed the Ohio State game, was going to come in, a little chip on his shoulder. Like you said, he's playing for his starting role, James, and I really thought he would take advantage of the opportunity, show up. And although it wasn't his best first half, he was making some good plays. He had some good completions on 3rd down to keep the ball rolling for the Wolverines. But come second half, when it really matters, when it really came down to crunch time, he disappeared, James, and he had 2 very crucial interceptions to end the game that just killed us.
It was no better than a John O'Korn game, frankly. It was no better than a John O'Korn performance. 20 of 44 in the game, Lena, 186 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. As a redshirt freshman quarterback, a guy who has been on Michigan's campus for 2 full years. If people forget, he came in early January of 2016, 2 years ago, almost to the day, as a senior in high school, enrolled early, and he is, 2 years in the program. And frankly, he is no better than Wilton Speight. Actually, he's worse than Wilton Speight was last year. I don't know what was going on with Speight this year, but he was not finding the guys open. He was getting flustered. He was not getting rid of the ball. There were so many times he could get sacked, threw the ball away at the last instant, could have ended up being an interception, could have been a disaster for Michigan. His play today was just pedestrian, at least. It was very poor. I don't know what the Michigan coaching staff has been doing for the last 4 weeks, for the last 4 months. And now that we're going into 2018, Lena, we're going into year 4 for Jim Harbaugh, and we have the worst quarterback play in all of Power 5 at this point. I'll question this. Before we get into the second half highlights, we'll have those for you in just a few moments, folks. Before we get into those highlights, I want to ask you this. Of all the bowl games you watched this season so far, whose quarterback play would anyone trade with Michigan right now? Anybody?
Nobody's.
Anyone trade for their quarterback play?
I'd rather have Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, well, of course you would. And I would. I'm a Lamar Jackson hater at this point, but there is not a single quarterback group in all of the bowl season that they would say, oh, Michigan's quarterback, we'd rather have their quarterback situation than ours. No fan base, no coaching staff, and that is a testament to the offensive coaching staff of Michigan and the poor job they have done with developing quarterbacks under Jim Harbaugh. And frankly, Lana, it's worse than it was under Rich Rodriguez. It's worse than Brady Hoke. This is Jim Harbaugh's coaching staff cannot develop a quarterback. Brandon Peters is an Elite 11 quarterback. You've got Dylan McCaffrey sitting behind him, and they are praying to all their lucky stars right now that Shea Patterson comes in and is the truth. Because frankly, this game is an embarrassment. This quarterback play was an embarrassment, and I am mad as a Michigan fan. I'm mad as a Michigan media member that we've got to suffer through another loss, 3 straight losses, 3 straight games where you had a lead, 2 of them in the second half, won a huge 14-point lead against Ohio State at home, and this is what we're dealing with, Lana. And frankly, it's a disaster. It's embarrassing, and Michigan fans have every right to be pissed off at what they're seeing out of this program right now.
All right, if you're just joining us, this is the Michigan Football Report. I'm Lena Bond, and this is the Michigan Football Insider, James Yoder, here to break down Michigan's performance against South Carolina. We just talked about the first half. We'll get to the second half highlights here in a sec, folks. We're just breaking down Brandon Peters' play right now. Very disappointing performance from the young quarterback. James, I have to ask you, and we can bring up a weigh-in for this. Do you think Brandon Peters lost his starting position because of his play today? And quite frankly, do you think he will ever see playing time ever again on this Wolverines team?
I just can't see Brandon Peters being the starting quarterback when you have Dylan McCaffrey and the bloodlines and kind of the thoroughbreds family he's built in. Few people know this, but his grandfather, his mother's father, once had the world record for the mile. Did you know that? About
awesome.
50 years ago. and his dad was a great NFL player. His brother is now a great NFL player. Brandon Peters is a true freshman, only been with the Michigan program for about 5 months now. And then Shea Patterson, we're just going to call him the truth at this point because I've been watching Shea Patterson highlights for the last 3 or 4 weeks, Lena, getting ready to kind of what we're going to expect to see this spring and in 2018. If Shea Patterson is eligible next year, I think Brandon Peters is your third string quarterback. I think that's how bad this performance has done for his ability to be Michigan's starting quarterback long term. And with that, I think Brandon Peters played himself out of the starting quarterback in Michigan because, Lena, whether Jim Harbaugh wants to say it or not, I think deep down he wanted to prove the doubters wrong that, hey, my recruiting wasn't bad. I know that Shea Patterson's coming in and has all the hype in the world, but I do think there was a part of Jim Harbaugh that wanted Brandon Peters to win the job because, like, hey, this is still my guy, and hey, that superstar everybody else wanted, well, he can't beat out my guy, take one of his guys, lead him to a championship. Not happening with Brandon Peters. It's Dylan McCaffrey or it's Shea Patterson. If Patterson is not eligible, they better hope and pray and everything they have that Dylan McCaffrey is ready to lead Michigan next year because it is not going to be Brandon Peters. All
right, guys, this is the Michigan Football Report. We're going to get to those highlights in a second, but we are presented by Man Crates. Awesome gifts for guys, curated kind of like a museum, but better. One of my favorite things, they come in these awesome wooden crates, and you get a crowbar to open it with. Like you say, James, it's just a box full of testosterone.
Yeah, so my wife asked me yesterday, she says, are we getting rid of this man, keeping this Man Crates thing? I'm like, yes, I'm keeping it. This box is awesome. Packaging is almost as good as the gift. It's a wooden box that you pry open. I love it. I'm using it all around the house, like kind of put things on. I put my iPhone on it to watch a little bit of the Michigan game earlier as I was getting ready to come in here. And by the way, you can buy that Michigan barware if you still are supporting the team. Mancrates.com. Search for Michigan barware. It's a wooden box, all kinds of Michigan stuff in there, including 4 Michigan pint glasses to drink all your beer to drink away these sorrows.
All right, James, let's get back into these first half highlights. Take a look at what happened here. So in the beginning, we're going to show you once again these awesome orange locks that the Wolverine players were rocking. We had Don Brown in on it, Mo Hurst, and as you see, Winovich dyed his hair as well. This was for brain cancer awareness and research. Really, really awesome stuff coming out of Tampa for this one. But we're going to go ahead and take it to the highlights now. Michigan and South Carolina traded off 3 and outs for the majority at the beginning of the game until this. Michigan goes to punt, and it's muffed by South Carolina special teams. Michigan recovers deep in Gamecock territory. All right, Michigan gets a field goal off the turnover. It's a 35-yarder from Quentin Nordine. He had a fantastic game for the Wolverines. Michigan up 3-0. All right, so now 1st and 10, Gamecocks trying to march down the field. When 2:28 left in the first, Bentley takes the snap and it's muffed and recovered by Winovich. Wolverine ball, another field goal off the turnover. Michigan up 6. Gamecocks ball now. Jake Bentley back to pass, and Khalid Hudson bats down the ball on a crucial 3rd down. Could have saved a touchdown, quite honestly. What a play from the Viper. Gamecocks are going to get a field goal. It's a 43-yarder. It's only a 3-point game now. South Carolina ball again. Refs reverse a 1st down call, so 3-1. Bentley hands it off to Tyson Williams, and who else but Mo Hurst is going to come down with a big tackle for a loss. Michigan ended up having another 3 and out, but the Michigan D kept rolling, coming up with a big stop here on 3rd down. That's Rashawn Gary on the play. Now we're going to have Peters, Deshaun McCune on a 4th down conversion with 40 seconds left in the half. That was really crucial for the Wolverines, and that would go on to set up the Nordine 45-yard field goal to send it to 9-3 at halftime. It was looking okay for us, James, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very pedestrian first half, by the way. Michigan came out sluggish. South Carolina came out sluggish. They seem to be more excited about their bowling matchup a few nights back and the kind of near fight that ensued beyond that than they were about the first half of this game. So with that, you know, I just don't know what I saw in the first half. Came out in the 3rd quarter excited about it, Lena, excited about what we're going to see about Michigan.
See the highlights here.
Yeah,
these 3rd quarter highlights. So right here, you're going to see a really long pass, and it's tipped and picked off right there, and that's that's going to be
Noah Furbush.
Noah Furbush. So it was his first career start and first career interception, and then not looking good right there. It's a fumble, and it's recovered by the Gamecocks. This is when it started going downhill, James, and then it's going to be another Quentin Nordine field goal to
send it to... We call him Quinn where I come from.
19-3. All right, and then moving on, with a few minutes left in the third, South Carolina marching down the field. Touchdown, Rico Dowdy. They try the 2-point conversion, and it's batted down by Devin Bush, and it's going to be a 10-point game after this. Wolverines getting nervous, but liking the play on defense. Michigan ball now. It's 3rd and 1. It's a handoff, and Sean McCune muffs the handoff. Ball on the ground, and South Carolina is going to recover. Not looking good for our Wolverines. Next South Carolina play, touchdown. That's Brian Edwards on the play. It's a 19-16 game all of the sudden, James. Gamecocks march down the field, and Bentley connects with Shai Smith for a long strike to take the lead. Michigan's now down 4 points in the 4th. Then Michigan looking to score on 3rd and goal. Beater's going to be back to pass, and it's picked off by South Carolina in the end zone, and this is when things really started going downhill. South Carolina will give Michigan one last chance. It's 4th and 1, and Peters throws another interception. That would just about do it for Michigan Wolverines. And that Michigan fan that we're about to show here in a second, James, is all of us. South Carolina does go on to win 26-19. They scored 23 straight to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say about this game, Lena? I literally was at my house prior, ready to come in to do this show in our lovely Dallas, Texas studios, and I left from Michigan's up 19-3, and right after that Noah Furbush interception, right? And I'm like, oh gosh, Noah Furbush is making plays. This is a victory. I kind of kept it on my phone, and also like, wait, turnover, what's going on? Saw a little chat on our internal message. I'm like, what is going on here? Get here, and literally it was disaster after disaster after disaster. We're talking fumble, interception. Donovan Peoples-Jones fumbling a ball deep in Michigan's territory. What in the heck happened from the middle of the 3rd quarter on this game? This game was terrible. It was such a disaster, Lena. I'm going to rant on here as long as people will listen to me, because Jim Harbaugh needs to be embarrassed that this is his friggin' team that showed up to play this game. This is January 1st. You haven't played a game in almost 5 weeks, and you are going to come up that haphazard, that many mistakes. Turnovers, fumbles all day, and then the secondary. How about Tyree Cannell letting a guy go deep on him, getting smoked again? Tyree Cannell needs to be replaced in the starting lineup after this season. The secondary was just sleeping and snoozing through the second half, Lena. This game was a disaster. 3 straight losses for Michigan. I'm going to go through this for a second. 0-3 versus Ohio State, 1-2 in bowl games, 1-2 against Michigan State. Whether or not Michigan fans want to say, oh, they could have won both the games, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. Harbaugh is now 2-7, Lena. If I did my math correctly just now in my head, which I did, 2-7 against their biggest 2 rivals and against in bowl games, and that right there is what gets you fired and you're going into year 4 unless you win a Big Ten championship.
See, and that brings us to our reaction pool here. Has Jim Harbaugh been a disappointment as a coach this season? Now, I feel like we've been talking about this a lot as Michigan began the slide towards the end of the season. Like you said, James, losing 3 in a row. I'm a big Harbaugh fan. I believe in him. I love the system that he runs, but you look at the stats, and you know what they say, James, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't, and I don't like what I'm seeing. I
think it's a Jay-Z lyric, right? That's a good one. I mean, how can you like what you're seeing? So let's talk about 2016. Off to an amazing start, up to number 2 in the country, lose 3 out of the last 4 games. So does Jim Harbaugh just not do well when it comes to November? I'm not sure. Then, okay, great. We kind of a lackluster. You knew this was going to be a 9-3. If everything plays out right, you're hoping for 9-3. You get lucky to go 10-2. Something crazy happens. You might go 11-1 because they lost 10 starters on defense. They lost so many guys on offense. It's so young. We've got 6 true freshmen started at some point this season. I think 5 of them today. So many sophomores like Rashawn Gary and Devin Bush and all these guys. And so with that, two true freshmen as your starting wide receivers, although Tariq Black went down earlier in the year and didn't come back. But with that, you knew it was going to be a disappointment. But you lose 3 out of the last 4 last year. You lose 3 straight games. So if you take the last 4 games of last year, Lena, the last 3 of this year, Jim Harbaugh is like 1-6, right, in his final 7 games. I know that's kind of a slanted stat because it is what it is. But 8-5 in year 3. You know who also went 8-5 in year 3? In year 3, Lena, it was one Brady Hoke. I guess he went 8-5 in year 2. But this is not what Michigan expect. I will go back and kind of look at this. But from 1969 to 2004, Michigan had 5 losses one time. One time, Lena. Then in 2005, they had a 5-loss season, came back next year, and by the way, went 11-2, starting the year 11-0, going into Ohio State game number 2. And then you got the Rich Rod and Brady Hoke eras. But you went 35, 40 years with having a 5-loss season one time. You know why the 5-loss season? Is because one Jim Harbaugh broke his collarbone in 1984, and they had a walk-on as the quarterback for the rest of the year. That's why they had a 6-loss season in 1984. So with that, 5-loss seasons get you fired at Michigan. I am sorry. I am the biggest Jim Harbaugh fan out there. I renamed myself Jim after I said name one of my sons after Jim Harbaugh one day. But this is embarrassing. This has not been a loss. You can't lose your last 3 games. And for me, has Jim Harbaugh been a disappointment as a coach? It's not just this season. It is the totality of this program right now. It is a big fat yes for me right now, Elena. I don't know what you think. I'm giving a yes.
All right, keep on throwing up your reactions. James is throwing up a yes. So let's kind of talk about it. You kind of hinted a little bit as you're talking about Jim, the blown leads this season, James. All right. There were a lot of them, and especially as of late. So let's take a look right here.
3 straight games, Lena. They have played a top 5 Wisconsin, a top 6, 7, 8, whatever they ranked, ultimately number 5, Ohio State team after that game. We're up 10-7 in the middle of the third. Now people say, oh, Brandon Peters went down. Who cares? You think Brandon Peters is winning your game? No, the defense lost them that game. Wisconsin scored 17 straight points from the middle of the third quarter on, right? Oh, that's kind of a theme, isn't it? All right, so you go fast forward a game. Up 14-0 against Ohio State, the biggest blown lead in the history of this series, Ohio State versus Michigan. Jim Harbaugh, everything in the line, does not want to start off 1-2 or 0-3 versus Urban Meyer, even though Michigan fans will still say, oh, he should have won in 16, bad spot, JT Barrett, yada, 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 yada. Lose 31-20. So, okay, Ohio State outscores you, what? What's the math? 31-6 down the stretch there. Are you kidding me? Up 19-3, completely dominating the game. Fumble, muff punt, interception. The second half, of about the last 18, 22 minutes of real gameplay was Rich Rod 2008 level, Lena. So if you hold a lead, and then you blame the offense on this, I don't know. Do you blame the defense? Maybe. Don't you kind of have to blame this defense? I heard a Michigan fan this morning say, oh my gosh, if Chase Winovich comes back, Michigan's going to have 5 of the 11 first-team All-Americans on defense next year. They're going to have Gary, Winovich, Hudson, Bush, and Laverne Hill, 5 first-team All-Americans. Bull crap. They're not going to have 5 first-team All-Americans. They're going to have 5 guys who blew leads 3 straight games. Don Brown, for all the ballyhooed stats he gets, he does not adjust when Michigan has the lead. He keeps running that all-out attack. He never adjusts to kind of maybe play, I don't want to say play a prevent defense, Lena, but prevent them from scoring at least. And that's not what we've done here. He plays well in the games are a little closer, and he also plays very well when Michigan's got a 30-point lead. But when they've got like a 2-score lead, what we've seen here, brutal defense. Terrible defense in this Michigan team. All
right, if you're just joining us, we are recapping Michigan's performance against South Carolina in the Outback Bowl. We're talking about blown leads. It seemed to be somewhat of a trend here for this Wolverine program, wrapping up the 2017 season. They blew essentially a 23-point lead. South Carolina went on to score 23 unanswered points. So let's kind of take a look back at the key plays here and see how exactly that happened. And we're going to throw it right now to the back-to-back fumbles that Michigan had in the third quarter. Turnovers will always kill you, James.
I mean, this is so uncharacteristic of Jim Harbaugh's teams at Stanford, at the 49ers, and even years 1 and 2 at Michigan. Then all of a sudden it came out, and you're seeing 4 and 5 and 6 turnover games, like 5 turnovers for John O'Corn versus Michigan State. All these turnovers in the second half alone. And it's funny, the South Carolina defensive coordinator said something along the lines of, the Outback Bowl record for turnovers is 6. We're going to get that today. And people are like, oh, this guy's talking crazy. Well, they almost got to it, by the way. They didn't quite get 6, I don't believe. But this whole turnovers in the second half was just poor execution, poor discipline for this team. And the halftime reporter came back and said, oh, Jim Harbaugh's yelling at the team. Yelling about what? Is there mutiny in this program? Because they are not listening to what Jim Harbaugh says. You're losing to South Carolina. I'm just going to throw this out here, Lana. There is not a single player on South Carolina's team that would start for Michigan. Not a single player that would start for Michigan. If you put them all in shorts and T-shirts, lined them up, did all the drills that you're going to kind of do, they would not be a single player. Yet you're losing this game on New Year's Day after a 5-week layoff, which you almost beat Ohio State.
All right, next key play here is when South Carolina had a touchdown to take the lead in the fourth quarter. 11:39 left to play. Deep ball from Jake Bentley there. And the defender just almost looked like he gave up, James. Let's take a look at it one more time here. Bentley back to pass, connecting there. And don't you feel like he almost could have caught him?
Is this Tyreek Hill, Mr. Give Up Long Passes, Tyreek Hill? Yes, that was brutal. That was an embarrassing play. Tyreek Hill needs to be out of the starting lineup next year.
All right, next key play we have here, key play number 3 was Peter's first interception in the fourth quarter, and it was a red zone interception.
Look at this play here, Lena. He literally jumps in the air. What is that throw? Who teaches you how to play quarterback? You never jump in the air unless you were Tim Tebow at the line running that little jump up and toss it with one hand over the top of the people. This was such an embarrassing throw, such a bad play. Just throw it away, man. I understand it's 3rd and goal, but at this point, you've got to understand the only thing that could keep Michigan from potentially losing the game is what happened there, which is throwing an interception. You get a field goal there, you're up by a touchdown. It's so terrible. I can't even, I'm ranting and just raving at this point, but this game was a disaster. It was embarrassment. I kept my cool during the game, Lena. You saw we watched it together. But now that we're watching it again, I am just infuriated at what this team came out and played like today. It was a disaster.
Well, I'm going to add fuel to the fire here, James. Let's take a look at the last key play, and that was Peter's last interception of the game. About a minute left on 4th and 1. This literally was the game to keep Michigan alive, keep a bowl game victory alive, and that, ugly. Yeah, ugly.
So I'm going to question the play calling here. It was 2nd and...
No, 4th and 1.
Yeah, it was, so it was 3rd and 1 prior to that. They got a big thing after that. They got a big nine-yard play. It was 3rd and 1, and they ran a terrible play call, a long pass like this. 4th and 1 with, what's the time there? A minute something left, and you were dropping Brandon Peters back out of shotgun 7 more yards, and you're going to throw an interception on a wide pass to the wide side of the field like that? What is that? That is terrible. Brutal.
Like I said, James, adding more fuel to the fire, these blown leads really went back to kill Michigan towards the end of the season. 3 straight blown leads. This one right here, 23 unanswered points against South Carolina. This is brutal, and it gets in 2 conference teams too also. Like, just come on. I mean, we're already going to be the laughingstock because we weren't able to get that Big Ten 9-0 in the bowl games this season, but God, James.
You know, we're going to talk about 2018 here in a second, both on the quarterback side and then Michigan's schedule, Lena, but think about what other Big Ten teams did in this bowl season. Penn State beat a Washington team that might have been a couple plays away from being in the playoff. Wisconsin beat everybody's favorite team, turnover chain, my effing ass, as their head coach said. Beat a Miami team in Miami, to win a major bowl game. Michigan State with a big win against Washington State, another team that was like everybody's darling midway through the season. And then who am I missing? Oh yeah, Ohio State absolutely embarrassed USC, the Pac-12 champion. Wasn't even a game. Wasn't even the kind of same level. And Michigan comes in here against I don't want to say a bad South Carolina team. It's a decent, it's a not a talent-filled South Carolina team, but it is a team that has no business beating Michigan and giving up, scoring 23 straight points to end the game. This game was a disaster, and Michigan's going to go into 2018, Lena, as maybe like the 6th best team in the Big Ten. Northwestern probably is coming back looking better than Michigan. Scott Frost coming to Nebraska. I don't know where this program goes. That is for sure.
All right, before we take a look at 2018, the schedule and where we go from here, and remind you that we are presented by Man Crates. Awesome gifts for guys. If you know an awesome gift or an awesome guy in your life, get him a gift at mancrates.com. They have jerky grams, they have old school video game grams, they have the awesome old school candy, like anything that you can think of for any guy in your life, they have something for you.
Yeah, all you gotta know is what guys kind of like, and just go search mancrates.com. If they're a football fan, where it's college, NFL, give them that barware set up. If you're not throwing them through your TV at this point. But mancrates.com is our sponsor. We love them. It's a wooden box of awesome stuff. You pop it open with a crowbar. Mancrates.com, the best way to get a gift for a guy.
All right, James, let's take a look at this 2018 schedule here. Michigan opens things up at Notre Dame. So a team who was highly ranked this season, obviously played some good games. I know they're playing right now. I'm not sure what that score is. Then they take it to Western Michigan and then the Southern Methodist. So out of these first 3 games, do you see the Wolverines coming up 3-0, or do you think there's something that's going to stump them here with the way that they've been playing in 2017?
That Notre Dame game looks really, really daunting at this point. I don't really have a great understanding of whether or not Michigan can win a game on the road under Jim Harbaugh. Let's just look at it. The only road game of substance they've won in 3 seasons is that 2016 game against a 3-9 Michigan State team. So Michigan can't win on the road. They're going to go to Notre Dame, a team that was just plays away from being in the college football playoff, kind of the darling of college football, along with Miami, who absolutely stomped them this year. But they're going to be returning a lot, kind of more stable offensive staff or quarterback, all that offensive line than Michigan's going to. It's at their stadium. It's a night game as well, and that's already been announced. I think Michigan's looking at a fourth straight loss, to be frank. I mean, unless Shea Patterson comes in, learns the playbook, and kind of goes from there. But I just don't know what to expect from this Notre Dame Michigan team on the road against Notre Dame. You go to Western Michigan, you go to SMU. Those should be wins at home. Then you're gonna welcome in Scott Frost in his first game as their head coach in the Big Ten for any purpose. And Michigan beat Central Florida with Scott Frost 2 years ago as their head coach. So Michigan has some experience playing against that team, but that's going to be a tough matchup. You never know what's going to happen. They could start off the year 2-2 and looking at 5 losses in a 7-game stretch. I don't know what to think about what we're going on here with this schedule in 2018. I mean, this is as daunting as it gets. We're going to keep rolling through them, but we go through to Maryland at home. That should be a win. Now, let's be realistic. Michigan went on the road with Brandon Peters barely throwing the ball this year and completely dominated Maryland. You go to Wisconsin, Michigan State. Could you be looking, before we even get to the bye week on October 27th, Lena, could you potentially be looking at 3, maybe 4 losses? I think you could be looking at 3 losses. And if you don't have 3 losses, you've got to pull a couple upsets. At Michigan State, Wisconsin at home, you've got at Notre Dame to start the year. I don't know. I mean, out of these first 7 games, Lena, I don't see 5 wins here. I see at least 3 losses unless something changes drastically. I mean, the defense is going to be incredible. But what's going to be quarterback play? Can they score points? Can they stop giving up points late? Can they stop blowing leads late in the game? Let's kind of kick it over into November after a bye week. Michigan gets in there. You've got Rutgers, then you've got Indiana, then you've got Ohio State. I feel like we're missing a game in here somewhere because we've only shown 11 games, so we'll have to double check our stats on that. But Rutgers, that should be a win. Indiana, I'm guessing that's a win at home. But then you go on the road again to Ohio State, and is that a win? I don't think so. I mean, who's playing quarterback for them? Dwayne Haskins probably, maybe Tate Martell, the true freshman superstar this year. And if that's the case, Lena, and we've got Brandon Peters, of course, I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, that's probably another loss to me. So if you do not change something drastically, Lena, you are going into 2018 looking at the same thing we got in 2017, which is, hey, we'll probably lose the games against the Indianas, the Illinois, and the Rutgers of the world, but you're going to lose all the games against teams that are going to be ranked in the top 25. You'll probably lose maybe a game here or there against a team that we're not even thinking that they could lose, and you're going to end up with another 8-4 regular season, go to a pedestrian bowl game, and Jim Harbaugh is going to have, other than Rich Rodriguez, maybe the worst 4-year start in history of a Michigan football coach.
I think you kind of hinted to it a little bit there, James. You're not really sure how these Wolverines are going to play next season, and I think the biggest room they have for change is at that quarterback position. So let's bring up a reaction poll here. Who do you think will start at quarterback in 2018? If it's our dude Shea Patterson, give us a thumbs up. If you're still holding on to hope for Peters, if you see something that James and I just clearly don't see, throw up a heart. And if you think Dylan McCaffrey is going to make an appearance, show a little wow face. Now, James, for me, I think it's obvious here with Shea Patterson, but what do you think?
It's got to be Shea Patterson if he is eligible. That's the biggest question. More money of salaries and ticket sales and bowl games and everything rides on Shea Patterson eligibility than anything I can probably remember in the history of Big Ten football, right? I mean, Urban Meyer coming to Ohio State has made such an impact on their program, but even so, they were winning at the highest levels under Jim Tressel prior to him. So it's not like they went from a pedestrian team to a top 5 perennial team, national championship, etc. So with that, if Shea Patterson is the starter, I go into this year saying, hey, we do have, 9 starters returning on defense, and maybe the only guy leaving that matters is Mo Hurst, because Mike McCray was probably going to be replaced anyways if we were to have another year of eligibility. You have so many underclassmen linebackers as true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, that would come in and probably knock McCray out of that spot. So with that, you've got to think, even though you've blown these leads, that the Michigan defense is set for next year, another top 5 defense, maybe even number 1 defense. I talked to a friend of mine who is pretty tied in on this, and he's talking crazy this morning that Michigan's going to have the best defense in Big Ten history next year. I'm like, get out of here, you're crazy. But he had a valid point. You think about all the guys, how well they returned from only returning 1 starter, Mike McCray. 10 guys had to be replaced, and they still had a top 10 defense this year. Without some blown leads, they could have been in the top 5 again. And with that, you've got 5 guys who have All-American potential: Winovich, Gary, Bush, Hudson. and Lavert Hill, David Long still there, and some others. And so you go into that year thinking your defense is set. What do we need on offense? The offensive line has been a disaster for the third straight year, and the quarterback play has been an abomination for, I don't want to say the third straight year, but for the better part of the last 2 years. And prior to that, you had a transfer from Iowa that came in and played in 2015. So if Shea Patterson plays, if he is eligible, you can realistically think about Michigan could be a championship-level contending team. If Shea Patterson doesn't play, Lena, this is an 8-4 season again, maybe 7-5.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the Brandon Peters plays from this South Carolina game. I know I saw a few hearts being tossed on the screen. Definitely still some Wolverine fans
Brandon
thinking.
Peters family.
That is maybe who threw up those hearts, James. So yeah, here are some of his plays. Now, he wasn't absolutely terrible in the first half. He did make some good plays, but he was scrambling around, really running around for his life out there, seeing a lot of ghosts. And those last 2 interceptions to really seal away the game for South Carolina was a bad look for Peters.
It was, terrible look. Throwing the ball 44 times and putting up the stats that he had, that's just terrible, Lane. It really is.
Yeah, there's really not much more to say about that. I really do not foresee Brandon Peters being the starting quarterback for this offense next year unless, like you said, there's some eligibility thing that gets in Shea Patterson's way. And let's go ahead and, speaking of 2018, let's take a look at that schedule again, James. I know we got the little graphic error fixed up. It was Penn State. We are going to be playing them November 3rd, and that's not a W. That's not an automatic W with the way this team's been playing. That's only another loss that the Wolverines could rack up in 2018. I feel like I'm being very negative right now, James, but it's not looking good.
Yeah, so you start the year with Notre Dame, 50-50 at best. I think it's more like 70-30. That's a loss, I believe. I think it's 70% likely that they take a loss in that game and go from there. You've got this daunting October schedule with Wisconsin at Michigan State and then the vaunted bye week, October 27th. Then you pop over to November 3rd. So in a 4-week stretch, Lane, if we can go back one, I want to talk about that for a second. In a 4-week stretch between middle of October and early November when they play Penn State at home, you have got Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Penn State, 3 teams that are going to end up in the top 15, maybe top 12, 11, and 2 of those are going to end up in the top 7, 6, right? They won their major bowl games. Why wouldn't they? So next season in the Big Ten, you're going to have Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan State, and Penn State, I believe, all ranked this preseason in the top 10, Lena. And where's that put Michigan? Where's Northwestern next year? I know they're not on the schedule, but that's another team that they might have to contend with as far as Big Ten supremacy. So after Penn State game, so you could potentially have 4 losses before November 3rd, right? By the night of November 3rd. You go over the rest of the schedule. You've got Rutgers, Indiana, Ohio State. Where do you see 5 wins? Where do you see 8 wins in that schedule? Where do you see 9 wins? I see 5 potential losses. Let's kind of just recap. Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State. 4 of those 5 games, 3 of those 5 games on the road. You've got Wisconsin and Penn State at home, Lena. This is a daunting schedule.
Nebraska's not a gimme either, James.
Not a gimme either. So, gosh, if this is Nebraska 2 years from now, it could be like a murderer's row of schedule. So it is a brutal one, Lena. And if Michigan wins the Big Ten next year, that means Jim Harbaugh made drastic changes. That means Shea Patterson is the starting quarterback playing at Heisman level, and something happens with the offensive line and just the offensive play calling in general. And with that, I think I have a question for you, Lena. Go ahead. Which
is the most crucial change Michigan needs to make? And I honestly think it has to be the play at quarterback. Now, I'm a really big believer that when you have a good quarterback, you have a good guy leading your offense, it really just lifts up the play of everyone else on the field, whether it be offense or defense. And I think if we're able to have Patterson at quarterback, he's all cleared to go. It's really, really going to make this Wolverine team rise up to the occasion. But what about you?
Yeah, so I came up with these ideas, and I think it's all of them, right? I really think you need maybe not that new head coach one. Jim Harbaugh is still the guy, in my opinion. I think he's the best coach, that they can get. So with that, it's tough to say. I think it's got to be Patterson at quarterback, but you can not have Patterson quarterback and still have success next year. If Dylan McCaffrey lives up to his billing, if Brandon Peters can play even like Wilton Spate or Jake Rudock level, some 15 and 16, Michigan can win 11 games. They could potentially win the Big Ten. and not have Patterson the quarterback. But something else has to change, and that's the offensive coordinator. I mean,
Yeah.
Tim Drevno is a guy we know. I liked him early on. I think he's got the right mentality. He's been around Jim Harbaugh for a long time, but Jim Harbaugh, as we talked about in the Michigan Football Report a few weeks back, he had to take the reins and basically become the offensive coordinator for the Ohio State game to even have a chance. And we saw they had some really innovative plays that game. Came out getting the ball in the hands with John O'Corn as quarterback, of guys who never got the ball in the hands of, keeping Ohio State, even in the fourth down when they didn't execute, keeping Ohio State guessing all day. So I think a new offensive coordinator, whether it's Drevno and Pep Hamilton, both need to be out the door. Recruiting seems to be doing well. That sophomore class, the 16 class, the 17 class, guys like Ambry Thomas and others are playing at a high level. So I don't think recruiting is the problem. I don't think the head coach is going to do it, because no one is going to come take this job at a high level coach if you fire Jim Harbaugh for 3 years. So I think it needs to be the offensive coordinator has to change. Jim Harbaugh needs to quit running whatever offense they're running, because it is not a championship level offense.
All right, guys, keep on throwing your reactions and keep venting to us in the comment section. This is the Michigan Football Report Vent Session Edition. But that just about does it for our recap of the bowl game against South Carolina. If you missed any of the highlights and if you want to watch them again for some reason, don't worry. We're looping them right back at the top of the hour.
Also be in the podcast.
Yes, they will be in the podcast, and the Michigan Football Report will continue going throughout the offseason for all the recruiting specials and previewing the 2018 season, so you won't want to miss a thing. But for the Michigan Football Insider, James Yoder, and I'm Lena Bond, we'll catch you next time. Highlights. Take a look at what happened here. So in the beginning, we're going to show you once again these awesome orange locks that the Wolverines